No te va a contestar porque ya no hay señal. También está Mirna, está Karina y está Tsiri, creo. Creo, no sé si está.
Hola Carmen, habla Sofía. Oye, ¿andará por ahí Mónica, Carmen? No la voy a pasar. Muchas gracias. Ah, ok. ¿Cómo van? Ah, pero ayudar.
Hola, hola, buenos días a todos. Perfecto. Perfecto. Muy bien, chicos, muy buenos días. Vamos a ir empezando por acá. Quiero ver dónde están. Hola, hola. Hola, chicos. Hi, how are you? How's everything going? Well, we're going to begin because today's agenda is pretty packed. And hi, everybody. Hi, Danny. Oh, I want to thank Daniel because his message for the Teachers Day was very touching. I was like crying, Danny. You really touched my heart. I would really like to see the video, so if you can send it to me over WhatsApp, I would be very thankful. Okay, and hello to everybody, Irving, Marielle, hi, Fatima, Irving, Nat. No. Danny, the thing is that I'm going to project something like on the back. So that's why I minimize myself. Okay. Hello, Gabriel. Hello, Diego. Hi, Julie, Tanya, and everybody else already then. So, we're going to begin. Let me look for my presentation. And well, first of all, I want to retake or like compile the ideas that we saw last time. Basically, we talked about the airlift in Berlin, and I assigned you a video about the Cold War in general, and you had to like do some writings. All right. And we talked basically that there were 3 hotspots in the Cold War. And they were proxy wars, they were satellite wars, and that, well, one of them is Korea, which was like the very, very early one. Then we're going to have the Cuban Missile Crisis that Kennedy had to struggle with. And finally, the one with the Vietnam War, which is like one of the most dreadful times for the American people. A lot of people went to war, the sons, the children, the husbands, the boyfriends. And so the United States population was very touched by this war, all right? And so we're going to the end of the war, all right? So hold on a second, I'm going to here. Okay, and we're gonna do this slideshow. Okay. How weird. Hold on a second, I'm trying to see why these. Who knows? Okay, that's weird. This is really weird. This is really, really weird what's going on right now in my screen. Like, I don't understand why I have all of this. Let me see if I can do it again. Window. Okay. No, I don't want that. There. Okay. Things are tricky. There, finally guys. I'm sorry for this delay, but I needed to set myself somewhere where I am not an obstacle for learning. Okay, so let me see, what are you saying? Oopsie whoopsie. I haven't uploaded the presentation, but I will, I promise. Hi Marianne, how everybody? Okay, we're going to begin because today we have to go very, very high speed turbo, all right? And let's begin. We were saying the last time that there were 3 hotspots in the Cold War, and we were naming them the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Vietnam War, okay? So here's some of the things that happened. We talked about the Bay of Pigs, all right? And this is the Cuban Missile Crisis. What's going on is what we just talked about last time, and the risk that it represented for the United States was based precisely in the range of the missiles. That is, that for the first time in their lives, Cuba had an ally within an attack range of proximity to the United States of America. Now, it's very, very close to the military bases in Florida. It's very close and within the range of, the scope of the missiles of the military bases in Houston and in New Orleans. And it's very, very in the range of Washington, D.C. and with a little bit more research of New York. So these represented a big threat to the United States of America to have a rival with equipment and with technology and with a developing possibility of attacking the main line of the United States in a very realistic manner and in a so direct way. Because previously, remember, all the wars of the United States had been fought in distance, had been fought in another continent. We deployed men and we deployed armies, but we never had, we never had a war fought in our same land. And the differences are, of devastation measures. Because if the war was fought, think about France in the first 2 world wars. The reason why it was so devastated, it was because the war was fought in their territory, in their mainland. And the differences are humongous. I mean, it's not the same thing, the damage that the Germans did to Great Britain, than the damage that they did to France, because the wars, the battles were actually happening within the territory, all right? So here's Vietnam, and we're reviewing a little bit so that we can get into the topic. Now, Vietnam is very, very weird, okay? The north part of Vietnam is very close to China, China is going to fall communist under Mao Zedong, and so under the domino effect, they are going to want to invade and to convert all these countries to communism. Now, nowadays, you have to remember, maybe communism is not such an attractive idea unless you are a Latin American poor country. But back in those days, communism seemed very, very popular, and it seemed that it worked. So many countries were buying that idea that communism was the salvation for their economies and their social context and their political structure. And so they were turning communist. And that's what drove the United States to adopt a very highly containment doctrine. A containment means that they wanted to restrain communism from spreading out. And they would do it at any cost, okay? And so, well, I'm going to skip forward some of the things because since they said that you have your exam next week, I'm going a little bit crazy, guys. Okay, forget the French. Bye, de Gaulle. This is very important, but we're going to skip it because I want to get to the end. De Gaulle is so important that the international airport in Paris is named after him. Okay. And many things, okay, you know that something that sprang out of the Second World War was the United Nations, something that sprang out from the Cold War was the European economic integration that led to the European Union afterwards, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth, and things that we're not going to see right now. Wait, where's the end of the Cold War? Wait a second, I have another presentation that is more complete. Oh. Hold on a second, guys. We're gonna go very fast on this. I'm sorry for so much. I actually thought that I had 2 more weeks for our class, but it seems we don't. I am opening so many windows that, oh wait, maybe I have this already. There, yay. Okay. There. Okay, something very simple, guys. We're gonna see this timeline here, and well, I want you to focus on the decline of the Soviet Union, all right? The Soviet Empire. We're gonna take this timeline from 1987, okay? And well, the Cuban Missile Crisis had already happened, and so in October we have Reagan and Gorbachev agreed to remove all medium and short-range nuclear missiles. Okay, so Kennedy gets killed, surprisingly, mysteriously, and they resolved to put an end to this conflict by mutually removing all medium and short range nuclear missiles. So Russia was going to withdraw the missiles from the island of Cuba, and United States was going to withdraw missiles from wherever they had them that had also St. Petersburg in the range of their missiles. So they agreed to that, and that actually worked. That worked to lessen things and to show the world that we don't have to be so exaggerated, and that we didn't, well, it was the dawn of another, it was the dawn of another time that where things they could be solved in another way. So they realized by Kennedy and Gorbachev trying things out, and after Kennedy was killed and the next president started negotiating with Gorbachev, they started realizing that maybe there was a truce. Okay, there was like a break in their main conflict. Okay. So then we have the 1989 timeline. In January, okay, now the conflict is going towards the end. All right, we have the Berlin Wall up, we have the hot spots where Vietnam and the Cuban Missile Crisis, and that's it. We're gonna finish with that. And then in January of 1989, we have the Soviet troops withdraw from Afghanistan. We have this little episode in Afghanistan. Again, the Russians start aiding this terrorist association because they have a right for self-determination and they want independence from the big powers. And so Afghanistan had a puppet government, again, led by the Allies and the winners of the Second World War, and obviously the leaders of the United Nations. So this terrorist group that rose up so that they could gain a little bit more independence and to have a government that was not manipulated from abroad, then they started being financed by the Russians. And that's totally proven. Okay, now the Taliban, who are known now as the Taliban, were this terrorist association or revolutionary. Remember that the story depends on who is telling the story. And so let's say we're talking about the history of Mexico, and we would never call Miguel Hidalgo or Venustiano Carranza terrorists. We would call them revolutionaries. We would call them independentist people. And so this Afghanistan movement for winning the independence of their country, their mainland, they were considered by the Allies as terrorists. Why? Because it was not convenient for them to give them a name that would evoke the rights of the people to self-determine as a nation, as supposedly the United Nations protects the right of all nations to self-proclaim independent, all right? So in June, Poland becomes independent, and that's a very big step because Russia finally loses control of this land that they were conquering during all the century and that served for very, very awful purposes during the second part of the World War II. And so they lost control over this territory, and now in June they lose control over the government too. So the government stops being communist, they start being democratic, and they stop being punished for being who they are. Because remember, the Russians and the Germans were very discriminatory towards the Poles. They thought the Slavic race was inferior to them, both of them, Russians and Germans. So they were always being punished for being who they are, and they were looked underestimated. And then in September, Hungary becomes independent. So all these countries that were subjected to the communist regime, to the USSR, start becoming independent, okay? Aided obviously by the United States. In November, the Berlin Wall is demolished. People are just sick. They're sick. They're totally sick of this fight that has been going on for like 40 years, and they conclude that that's it. Okay, that's it. They're not going to take it anymore because it's separated for a generation almost all these families and all these friends. And so they decide to take it away. In December, the communist government falls in Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, and Romania. So practically the Iron Curtain just vanishes. Okay, there's no more Iron Curtain that can be manipulated by the USSR, and they're being aided by the United States. So the purposes of these independences are dubious. We cannot say they fought for their freedom on their own. They were aided by the United States and the United Nations or the Allies. But, well, in paper, they seem very nice because they're not conquered anymore. Okay, they're not manipulated by a bigger power, they're not dominated by a greater and a strong empire. And now we're going into 1990. Some people said the end date of the Cold War in 1989 because the Berlin Wall falls, and it's very iconic. It's not like the wall had the power, but it's very iconic, all right? It's so iconic that they even have videos and stuff for this specific time, okay? As a matter of fact, let me look for one because I really like this period of time, and it's gonna change. Probably we're not gonna get to see the end because they have just told me that you guys have to be examining next week and you have TOEFL and you have all these things. But well. And here's
Así que quieres aprender inglés. Aquí tienes 3 mitos que son completamente falsos. 1, debes hablar mucho.
They even got together and let me see there. Hold on. Let me arrange my Oh no, I don't want my display to show. Perfect. Perfect. Alrighty, I'm gonna be here. Already. Now, this was not spontaneous, guys. This is obviously not spontaneous, but people are so sick of it that Eastern Germany is winning their independence. And everybody just gets together. It's kind of like when Las Chivas wins a match, and they go to La Minerva to celebrate. So when Russia becomes, they retire and they proclaim that they're not going to be monitoring Eastern Germany anymore. That means Eastern Germany wins independence. Then people naturally or spontaneously get together, goes to Berlin, goes to the Berlin Wall, carries the right here in the screen. Even the military people cannot do anything about it because they don't have any power whatsoever anymore over the people of Eastern Germany. So we are seeing how an empire just crumbles down and withdraws from the dominance that it controls for over 4 years. And so these are the period days in which they practically take down the wall, like piece by piece, and they're not going to end until it's destroyed. So people are channeling all this energy towards destroying the wall. Okay? So basically that's what happens there. And let's go back to our PDF. Yes. So that's the Berlin Wall falling. And then we have 1990, Lithuania becomes independent. So all these countries are becoming independent. So, I mean, there's no way the Russian Empire is still an empire. And Germany is reunited. Okay, finally, people celebrate a lot because families were separated, as we just mentioned. And it was a very, very shocking episode for the German people. And in 1991, which is the other date that some historians said for declaring the end of the Cold War, is in August 1991, because the Soviet Union ends and it becomes Russia. Okay, it becomes Russia. It's not the USSR anymore. Let me see if I can find a video for that, so that you can see with images. The last days of the Soviet Empire.
Would you like to
I
be...
don't want that. I don't want that. There are many things that haven't been cleared out and they require a deeper study. For example, 2 years ago in 2017, there was a war in Ukraine, and well, they declared their independence, obviously from the USSR, but they still keep control over them, the Russians, now the Russians, not the USSR anymore. But, I mean, people were ideologically changed during the Cold War, and so it's very difficult to undo what has been done onto a nation for so many years. We're talking about 2 generations. If you assign each generation 20 years, then we're talking about a very profound influence from the USSR onto the Ukrainians. And so a lot of Ukrainians still feel part of Russia. And that's what's basically the Ukrainian 2017 war all about. Okay? I can't find anything, but oh well. Do you have any questions so far for this part of the from the Cold War? Do you have any questions, guys? I'm waiting for you. Oh, Dennis was telling me that his grandfather had a very big role in the Cold War, and he sent me a picture of his uniform. I mean, war is not always like the answer, but well, you have to admit that a lot of people that fought in the war are heroes. So let me see. Do you have any questions, guys? No? We're going to have a review. We have seen very little. We have only seen the Cold War. So I need to upload the presentation. And it's 12:32. I don't know if to start some other topic. Hold on. Well, many of the things that were left out of our subject because of time constraints. One of the topics that I at least want to mention is the New World Order. You know that after World War II, we have the the United Nations arising with all their structure and their organization and their influence over the world. And some people say they're trying to get to be a world government, as if the whole world was one country, and so we would have like a world parliament and a world president or a world committee, just kind of like resembling what the United Nations has done with the Security Council, which is not obviously one person being the president of the world, but it would be a council made of many countries, constituted of many countries that have the lead on some topics. This is obviously very dangerous for the little nations, the ones that are never going to have a say. We have seen over and over and repeatedly in many cases around the globe how the United States shapes the information, shapes the actions, shapes the military actions and interventions to their own convenience. And we cannot just say that things are working their way. There's an essay that, if you like these topics, I strongly recommend. It's called Jihad versus Macworld. Let me put it on the thing here. Okay, it's called Jihad versus Macworld, and they're talking about this Benjamin Barber. He talks about two theses. He says that half of the world, especially the Muslim world, the Islamic world, they are fighting towards jihad, because you cannot say that this globalization movement has not found its resistance. It has a lot of resistance from people, and one of the people that it has resistance of, and one of the showings or the manifestations is the 9/11 attacks, is jihad. Jihad is a holy war, is a term that the Muslims give to the holy war, and because of due to the religious beliefs, they are very, very honored to fight for these goals of unifying their nations. They apparently have this organization parallel to the United Nations, and it's public. I mean, they have the Arabic Monetary Fund, we have the International Monetary Fund. They know that they're not going to be favored by the allies or by the Security Council. They know that, and so they take their precautions. And so, this thesis talks about that half of the world is driving towards jihad, the right of self-determination, of preserving your customs and traditions, preserving your language, to have very rooted in the next generations the identity of all the people from your culture, and to not mix and match with other cultures as easy as other nations do when they fall under the globalization standards. And the rival is Macworld. Macworld is this tendency to make the world a global village, to paint the picture as if it only had upsides, as if we trade with everybody around the globe, things are going to become cheaper, things are going to become more diverse, you're going to have more options of products to buy. And so they painted like that. That's why there's like jihad is portrayed by this woman with the veil, and Macworld where it's portrayed by a Pepsi. You don't know how these things are going, but the truth is that the world is not unified, the world is not divided. There's a lot of nations that as of right now, they're still fighting for their freedom, their independence, the right for self-determination. They have customs that we do not understand, they're different. And then we have the world that is trying to unify everything, the fashion world and the music world and the cultural world, so that everybody has a McDonald's wherever they go or a Coke wherever they go. And so we have these two trends, these two forces that are pulling the world and the people of the whole globe towards different directions, and that's the next conflict probably would arise from a clash of this. Now, the last question for the semester is if there would be a third world war, where would it come from? Some people point to the Asian tigers. The Asian tigers are Korea, the ones that have a lot of military power. Okay, if we looked for the military power, let me put it in the screen. Okay, let me put it in the screen. Military power. If we were to say here, there's a ranking that I really like, that for military strength, the military index, the military strengths. I just can't find it because they keep on changing the interface. Hold on. No. The hell? No. I had one. It was pretty nice. There's a comparison of the strongest military, and well, the last number should be here. Should be from 2019. And we're gonna see that, because if we were to be asked, you know, like if there was a third world war, where would it come from? Where would it actually come from? And so here I have this web page, okay, that says the strongest militaries in 2019, counting the forces. And so number one is the United States. Okay, and its power index is, hold on a second, hold on. Chicas, estoy en clase, please. And the number one is United States. And we have some data here. It says that the US falls short of first place in public only in a few metrics, such as the number of combat tanks, 6,287, ranked third. The number of self-propelled artillery, equaling 992, that's the seventh number. And the number of rocket projectors. In terms of naval assets, it says that the US is second only to China. Now, it's obvious that China is going to be at the lead for many things, but overall, like if you count all the metrics, number one would be the United States. Although it's not the most populated country in the world, it has the most and the highest military spending in the world. Second is Russia. So we're not past the Cold War entirely and completely. We still have a rival. Well, I'm always considering myself American. Can you forgive me for that? Please. And, well, this is not what I wanted to show you. It's so weird that I had it and now I don't. And supposedly I saved it. Let's see this one. It says Transcend International. Let's see if these, the 35 most powerful militaries in the world. So let's see. Yes, remove. There, something like that. I wanted to see something like this. Okay. So as we already said, in number one, is the United States of America. Number 2 is Russia. Everybody coincides in the ranking for that. This is like an infography. Let's see. And then, well, the numbers are so little that I can, oh, there, no. Sorry, guys. I am still, I don't get it. I don't get this. I'm still experiencing with this, and the classes are gonna be over. I'm gonna die. I'm very mad. I'm actually mad. Pero bueno, hazme el tiempo de darle buena cara. Okay. There, I can do it with my mouse better than I can do it. There. So basically we have the ranking here, and well, as I said, number 1, manpower, 145 million people. So can you imagine like 145 million people, like being soldiers ready to attack at any moment? That's why it's like a deterrence war. It's like a Cold War right now. Tanks, aircraft, nuclear warheads, aircraft carriers, submarines, and the budget. If you compare it to China's budget, is 6 times more the spending of United States in national defense than China. And although Russia has less spending than China, is ranked number 2 for the equipment that they have. So between those 3 countries, we can say we should consider also and take into account if they have this alignment system, this block system. You know, kind of like in the Cold War, we were concerned about how many allies each of the captains of the teams had. The same thing here. We have United States, Russia, China, India, but we would see between the 3 top countries that are more militarized, United States, Russia, and China, how many people would they have backing them up if we go into war? How many people would we have? How many countries would we have? And I think the rest are not, obviously we're not even in the list. Like Mexico is not even in the list. Switzerland, Syria, Saudi Arabia. So that can be one of the questions, how we would answer to a third event, a third World War event. Who would it come from? It would have to be between United States, Russia, and China. Okay. And I think that's it. So let's see. We're gonna have to agree on some of the things. Time is over. And let me see. Okay, here. Are we going to have a repaso? Yes. ¿Qué dice? Ay, whatever. Okay. Listo. Okay, guys. So I'm gonna upload the review. I'm gonna upload the study guide, and well, I'll see you. I'll get with Natalia so that we can arrange the date for our exam. Okay. So guys, thank you for your attention. And besos mozos. Goodbye. I know you have another